of wasted food is food expiry dates, right? So Dana's staff scientist at the Natural Resources Defense Council, and she works with NRDC's work on reducing food waste, and is the author of a widely distributed report, Wasted: How America is Losing Up to 40% of its food from farm to fork to landfill. She also recently co-authored a report called The Dating Game, which I think fits with Recycling Updates so beautifully, revealing how confusing food dates lead to food waste in America. Her work on food waste has been featured by CNN, NBC, the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, NPR, and most importantly, Recycling Update. Thank you. Hello, my fellow waste geeks. How are you all? Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. I am always in awe by the waste industry that does this miracle on a daily basis where I throw my stuff in a certain color bin and it goes to some magical place that is better than the landfill. And I really appreciate that regularly, so thank you for making that possible. I don't know if this happens to you, but as I go about the world, I have people come up to me and go, oh my God, I thought of you the other day. I had these rotten tomatoes in my refrigerator, and I put them in a sauce, something like that. It makes me happy to be connected to rotten tomatoes. So, and it also makes me happy to be here in the reduce category of the day because there is one, and thank you. I feel so short behind me. I'm mostly here to talk to you about expiration dates today, but Jordan asked me to be give you an update on the latest information around food wasting, as I'm told I'm supposed to call it by the waste books. So we use the number 40%. Recently, just a month or two ago, the USDA came out with a report on calories wasted across the country, or wasted and lost, rather. And they estimated about 30%, in case you're paying attention to those numbers and wondering. They only looked from the retail and on, so retail, food service, households. Therefore, my sense is that this 40% number is still about right, because when you include everything before retail, you probably get about to this number. In any case, it's a lot, and instead of a graph, this is sometimes what it looks like. And another updated set of numbers for you all. Last fall, the United Nations came out with a report, the Food and Agriculture Organization, estimating how many resources it takes to produce all of the food around the world that gets lost or wasted. And they estimated that if wasted food were or rather uneaten food, so lost and wasted, were a country, it would rank number 3 after the US and China in terms of the greenhouse gas emissions that it accounted for. They also estimated that 28% of all of the land in agriculture is going to grow food that never gets eaten. So when we talk about, food waste and what to do about it, I'm with Ryan. I have huge respect for diversion. There's so many important reasons. A big part of that, number 3 country ranking is the methane emissions that's coming out of those food scraps. But to be here in part of the reduction part of the day, really prevention is the best way to reduce the need for some of those resources. And certainly here in a state of drought, my favorite statistic to throw out around this is that for every hamburger that gets thrown out, we're throwing away the equivalent of a 90-minute shower's worth of water. Wow. Of course, this isn't just about resources. Thank you to the gentleman who brought up food recovery. We have a hunger challenge in this country. Those numbers have not changed in terms of updating them. We're looking at about 1 in 6 Americans who is considered food insecure, meaning that at some point during the year they don't have a secure supply of food to their tables. And I won't go on because I know you all have heard about this topic before. But we, of course, have been looking at what solutions are important, and we came across expiration dates. Of course, food wasting is a very complex problem. It's happening in little bits here and there. So the solutions are quite varied and dispersed as well. But we really felt that expiration dates were one of the lowest hanging fruit, that this confusion around expiration dates were leading to food being thrown out. And notably for you all, the food that is getting thrown out because of confusion around expiration dates is by definition in a package. And part of what I'm guessing causes challenges because you're talking about those full yogurt containers that people aren't dumping out and separating into compost and recycling. All right, so just to make sure we are all on the same page here. Expiration dates 101. There's really two buckets of dates out there. So there's the B2B, business to business dates, which are your sell-by dates. This is the manufacturer communicating with the retailer that the food should be sold by a certain date so the consumer can take it home and have a good experience with it. They build in time for the consumer to have it home and be happy with it. And that time, varies by product. The other category is, really the consumer-facing dates, and that's your use by, best if used by, enjoy by, guarantee fresh if used by. There's over 30 different permutations out there of that date. And that is speaking to the consumer, but it's not telling you to throw the product out most of the time. What it is a manufacturer's suggestion for when that product is at its very peak quality. That means it might change color slightly. They might have done taste tests and focus groups and found that 50% of the people tasting things, felt a slight change in taste after that date. Oftentimes these products are good for days, weeks, months, depending on the product, even years after those dates, and they would not do harm to the person consuming them. They are not federally regulated. And a handful of them are about safety, but there's no way to tell which those are because the wording is all confused. Because it's not federally regulated, there are laws that differ in every state, and I know this is a hard picture to read well, but the idea here is that every state has different laws. Some have them over many products, some have them over none, some have them on dairy and shellfish, but nothing else. That's California. And so really there's just no consistency to the way this is being done. If you have nothing else to do at lunch and no one to talk to you, I invite you to go around the corner to the Trader Joe's, just a couple blocks from here where I did this little experiment. I walked in and I looked at the milk shelf and I found that even within the same brand of Trader Joe's milk, the same type, your 2% organic milk, the gallon milk and the half-gallon milk actually have different dates. One had a sell-by, one had a date with no words. Same thing on the fat-free. One had a best-by date, one had a date with no words. So this inconsistency is leading consumers to throw out food prematurely. About 9 out of 10 consumers, according to one industry survey by the Food Marketing Institute, report throwing away food, at least occasionally, on the sell-by date. And if you go back to our buckets, that's a date that has been designed to make sure the food does have life left after that product gets home. And so, bottom line, there's a lot of confusion over these dates. And we don't have great data on exactly how much food that's being thrown out is due to this expiration. However, what we can tell you is that in the UK, where they have much better data on this, about 20% of the food being thrown out in households, their estimate, is due to confusion around expiration dates. And they've already gone ahead and improved upon their system. Okay, so how do we fix this? Our suggestions are to start by just creating a standardized format for these date labels. It's consumer education is key, you'll see it there, but it's hard to educate when there's not a consistent meaning for these dates. So our suggestion is to come out with 2 separate dates. This is the way it's done in the UK. They have one date that's focused on food safety that says consumer, do throw this product out, do not consume it after this date. The other date is a quality-based date that consumers are becoming familiar with. Yeah, it might not be at its best quality, but I can taste it, it won't hurt me, it's not going to kill me. The other piece of these sell-by dates, that's business-to-business information. The consumers don't need to see those dates, and it could be coded or somehow hidden from the consumer so that stores can still do their shelf rotation, but that consumers are not confusing that for a date that is trying to tell them to throw the product away. And finally, adding more storage and handling advice and really increasing consumers' familiarity with products and how do you know when something's bad? What types of products are dangerous and what types of products actually are not going to harm me? What can I do to make sure my kitchen is safe? And really, I think a lot of the food that's thrown out there, that is thrown away out there, is due to fear around it. And so really empowering consumers with more information about how to handle products, how to know that they're doing so safely. And then finally, consumer education. And I think certainly in food waste management programs, I would love to see in every rollout of a food waste collection program a certain amount of education of consumers on how to store your products, how to best handle them, how to cook. And as Ryan mentioned, this can be a really positive topic. There's a lot of fun to be had with recipes and storage tips, and people just love it and get really engaged. So it might be a way to actually further engage your residents around their composting program by bringing the prevention message in as well. Just a couple examples of how these changes went down in the UK. You can see on the left there's an example of having 2 dates and going to just 1 date to provide more clarity. On the right, Sainsbury's in the UK has really embraced this idea of communicating the date big and bold and with storage information that you can't see. But here's some other storage information. Keep me cold. There are brands that are really building this whole program around how do you best keep food and including more advice on their products. And I will stop there. Just one more note to just say that so far we released our report called The Dating Game back in the fall. And it's been really well received by the food industry. I think they've acknowledged that this is sort of unnecessary confusion, and they really are starting to take steps to come up with some kind of voluntary standardized method to follow.
We have 3 minutes for questions.
3 minutes. Questions? Right.
Is that happening on the national level or the international level?
The date label standardization. The conversation is at the national level.
And Ryan?
Should we be suspicious that retailers are intentional in creating confusion to create more?
Should we be suspicious? Is the food industry intentionally shortening their dates so we throw out more? I do not think so. There is a lot of reason for them to, have longer dates actually, and there is some healthy tension between manufacturers and retailers to have enough shelf life on a product when it gets to a store. So I don't think people are intentionally doing that, but they are worried about their brand equity. They do want you to taste the product when it's at its peak. They don't want you to judge it after that. And so there is some conservativeness around protecting their brand.